Guys, welcome back to the Lake Norman Business Podcast. I'm Ryan Webber, as always with Danny Decker. We are here with our guest today. She is one of the best husband pickers in North Carolina. My wife, Tiffany Webber.
Hey, folks.
Hey, nice to meet you.
I am pretty good at that.
Yeah, hey, I can't disagree with that. So Tiffany is a real estate attorney.
That's right.
She is my wife.
That's also correct.
And she is going to tell us about how you got into real estate law.
Oh, well, I started off my career in litigation here with this firm, doing a lot of zoning, construction, a lot of disputes that involved real estate. And Ben Thomas, who is going to be my law partner as of April 1st, he went on vacation and needed some help, and I just never left. So that's really the truth of how I got into real estate.
How did you, when you were in high school, did you always know you wanted to be a lawyer? Or
No, I did not.
How did that journey happen?
I've always been interested in law, but I thought I would do something more math related. I really like math. I was actually just talking to some clients about that, about how much, just geeking out over math, statistics.
Oh, numbers, yay!
But I got to undergrad and, started out pre-pharmacy like pretty much everyone my age did because that was the hot career, and really didn't like organic chemistry. And so I went into marketing, which I like because I love messaging.
Because it's the best career.
Consumer behavior, it was just incredibly interesting. And got out into the sales world for a couple of years into what I call a soul-sucking career of pharmaceutical sales. So that's when I started getting interested in the law and figured out a way to keep a job and also go to law school. And I did not know.
Very cool. So how long have you been practicing law?
I am about to begin my 5th year.
Very cool.
Yeah. I like saying that rather than 4, but my 4th year, almost 5th.
Yeah, almost 5. Probably by the time this airs, it'll be your 5th.
Yeah.
It'll be pretty close. So we are on season 3, bringing on people to talk about a superpower. And other than, just getting to hang out with really awesome people all day, every day, you have a very, very good skill of being able to craft your message to the specific audience that you're talking to. So kind of explain what that means. Our audience is entrepreneurs, people that are generally trying to learn a little bit more about how they can improve their business. So why is crafting your message to a specific audience helpful, and kind of what do you do to do that?
Okay, so I think the first rule of knowing your audience is knowing that most of the time you are not your audience. So if you can keep that in mind, it helps you remember, don't craft a message in a way that is pleasing to you. You have to think about who's receiving it and what you want them to do as a result. So
honestly, that is such a great point. Like that right there, you got all of your money's worth for this entire season, because I feel like that is something nobody understands. And really special credit to you being a lawyer who understands this, because I find that attorneys are some of the worst people to understand this. It's like you went to law school, you understand this stuff, but the people who are hiring you have not gone to law school. And so your average lawyer wants to, on their website, put all sorts of, torts and litigation and all of these terms
so much jargon.
And it just scares the heck out of people is what it really does.
I agree.
So that's awesome. So how did you have that kind of breakthrough?
Well, I think it's a credit a little bit to getting a marketing degree in undergrad. That helped. But starting in litigation, everything is about persuasion, and that includes the judge, because the judge is a real person too and can be swayed by how you craft your argument. Getting a jury to do what you want them to do is unpredictable and nearly impossible, but you have to learn about each individual juror and how they might receive the message that you want them to hear so that you get your desired result. So that is probably why I care so much about it. But now, it being in real estate, it's even more important because there's so many parties to a transaction. So you don't talk to the lender the same way that you talk to the realtor, that you talk to their client. So you've got to, especially at the closing table, be able to take a complex document like a deed of trust and say in 2 sentences what it means to them and why it's important. So depending on who you're talking to is different.
Clarity and speaking the language that your audience knows.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so you do this a couple different ways, thinking about our audience, how they can use this. One, it's talking to people in person. talking to potential clients in person, but then even bigger on Danny and my level is talking to potential clients that don't even know who you are. So why is it so important for reaching, let's talk about kind of the marketing aspect of these potential clients? You know, what kind of messaging and how do you craft that messaging different from a current client?
I think the most important thing to a potential client is that they can understand quickly and clearly what it's going to be like to work with you. So if you can say in plain language, and that's probably another cardinal sin of lawyers is that they can't use plain language. So you have to use really simple language.
She got really good at plain language because she has to tell me anything.
That's why I'm an expert, folks.
That's awesome.
Just using the simple language, not dumbing it down, not oversimplifying to the point where someone feels like they're being treated like they're dumb, but just explain how will the client feel working with you? What is it going to be like? Will it be simple? Are you going to talk over their head? How long will it take? Are they going to feel like it's home, like it's family, or is it going to feel more clinical? If they understand getting into it, it's a lot easier when you have that first conversation, or when you get to a point where you can pitch them on your services and try to close the deal. It's going to be easier. And
another thing that you really focus on too is when you meet somebody or when you talk to somebody, you try to quickly identify what it is that person, their education level is, what it is that they understand, what things make them tick. So you try to identify that really quickly so you can start crafting your message to speak to that specific person, because you don't speak to each buyer the same.
Absolutely not. No, you don't talk to a really high up VP at Lowe's Corporate the same way that you talk to your first time home buyer. And that's partially not necessarily because the first time home buyer is not educated. It's because they're going through a different experience. Typically, your executives, this is like a second home for them. They've signed all of this paperwork a million times before. But a first time home buyer, this is a big celebration for them. So you have to turn it into, you're talking to it not in kind of boring paperwork language, but this is how it's getting you to the next step of, this big celebration, this time in your life that you're really happy about.
I love that. I think that's really smart, and just understanding that not everybody is the same. And so if you really want to communicate with somebody, you need to understand what makes them unique. So obviously you do that really well, and it sounds like it's kind of a natural talent.
She won't say this, but it's not. She hates talking to people. So
I'm very introverted.
That's actually better then.
Yeah. I know what you're going to go for it, Danny.
No, that's perfect. That's an even better way to describe it, because for the person out there who wants to do this but doesn't feel like they're really like naturally talented at it, like how do you start? How do you develop that ability?
Well, I think start in the way that is natural to you, and for me, that's writing. I would write blog posts all day long if I could versus being on video, but you develop the skill by, start at something that you can do and you do well and you like, and then get better at knowing your audience through that way. So maybe you're really great on social media at interacting. We'll learn what your target audience is and interact with them in a way that's going to appeal to them. And then maybe try writing blog posts or short videos or, networking, but just take your baby steps. Don't assume that you're going to be able to walk into a networking event and just own the room and understand everyone if you haven't put in any sort of effort to hone the craft before then.
And this is probably something that you and I, Danny, struggle with, because we're working with people that we know what they need to be saying, but they've never said it or they're not comfortable with it. So when I get someone on video, I'm like, oh yeah, it's just this, and this. And it's very simple in my brain, but for them, that's tough for them. And you trying to get them to understand their messaging, it's like they don't get it. It's not as natural. It's got to be learned. So, understanding that it is baby steps, and it's hard for us to do that.
Well, and I think you're right. And I think and what Tiffany does like really well kind of naturally is just starting by putting yourself in the perspective of the person you're talking to, right? And like understanding what makes them tick. Are they excited because they're about to buy their first house? And so talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. How do you find that? How do you discover how to put yourself to do that?
Well, sometimes it's kind of hard to describe, I guess, because when you've been doing it a while, it's hard to remember what made you think of those things. But one way to do it is, it sounds really silly, but I hate to even say visualization, but kind of in your mind's eye, just imagine if you are this busy executive, you've probably got 18 meetings to go to after this. So how would you feel if your attorney was very slowly and delicately explaining every document that you've already been exposed to? You would hate that, and you don't want the experience to be that way. So you need to alter the experience to a way that would please the client, delight the client, get them onto their day faster, versus someone who's going through a refinance and they need to understand what their rights are. What if they don't like this deal, or your first time home buyer, or in other contexts of law, you need to know what is going to get the judge to, the judge has a long docket, and so you've got to know what is going to make a message stick with them. So
it's so good. I think it's just it's obviously true in law, but it's true in every business. Like, it's not about what you as the business owner, how you want to do things. Like, being really great at marketing or creating customer relationships is really, it's about the client. It's about the customer. And I just think that's really great. Like, it's really awesome.
I think a couple things that a lot of people could do is they can go in and they can ask questions. And you don't like making small talk. You're someone that wants
I have to practice it and work.
But what you're really good at is you observe the other people making the small talk, so you can take in what they're saying. And so when you talk, you can already immediately respond to them. So you when you go into a closing, you're looking at maybe the interaction they're having with their realtor. Are they smiling? Are they just sitting there kind
language.
of, are they tapping their pen because it's like, oh man, they're ready to go.
Thank you for saying this, because those are all things that I do that I don't think about.
I know. And I knew you weren't going to say anything. So I had to, I gotta boost you up. So I gotta help you out.
Well, I was just thinking of another local business that I think does this well, knowing their customer, and it's Clutch Coffee.
Shout out to Clutch. Get him on here.
He's drinking it right now.
Well, it's gone, but.
But whenever, you're sitting in line at Clutch because they're so busy, but what they do a great job of is knowing if you're going to be waiting for something, it's good to be distracted from the fact that you're waiting. So they do a really good job of keeping you engaged with them and making conversation. And I think that's not just about customer service, is that they know what it feels like to wait in line and how terrible it is, and you get annoyed as the longer you wait. But if you're distracted, you have no idea how long you've been waiting. So whether it's 30 seconds or a minute or more, you don't have any idea.
It's one of those things where it's obvious on some level. Like, it's obvious. Okay, we should think about our customers and our clients, but no one does it. And there are so many coffee shops that all have the same, opportunity, but everyone is so busy running the coffee shop that they don't take the time to think about this stuff. So I'm really excited that you're on here talking about this, because I think this is an opportunity for everyone listening to really just take a little bit of time and think about, what is it like for my customers and my clients doing business with me? And like, what opportunities are there for me to change the way I do things to make their experience like much better,
So you kind of look at this as a customer service, but it's not customer service. So you try to have a very high quality customer experience, but they don't even realize it. Would that be a good accurate? So you want them to leave knowing that you did exactly what they needed, but they didn't know that that's what you were trying to do.
And sometimes that, I don't want to say bites us, because that's not the right phrase, but when you do your job in a way that delights the client and it seems effortless, they're like, well, why did that cost so much? So sometimes you have to build in a little bit of the acknowledgement of how much work goes on.
But also, like,
they
they only remember the bad experiences. You remember good experiences too, but you want it to be so seamless. Like this, it's almost like their transaction didn't even happen. Like, it's just gone.
My favorite thing that happens at the end of a closing is if someone says, "That's all." And they're like, we're done? That's it? I thought this would be harder.
And maybe they were with you for an hour and they're like, oh, wow, well, that seemed like it went so
And that's
fast.
the difference between like real, like high level customer service where you're actually, connecting with people and empathizing and all of that, versus just like formulaic, like, come to my doctor's office and we've got a nice waiting room and it like looks pretty.
Yeah,
and
like they try
candy.
too hard kind of.
Right. But then the actual experience itself sucks. The doctor was 30 minutes behind schedule and you had to fill out 1 million forms. And so, no, it's awesome. I love it.
So if someone was getting started and trying to start crafting their message, maybe talking to somebody in person, what would be the first step you would say to start practicing?
Well, I would say do your research. And this is also, Ryan's always been encouraging me to do a course on how to win interviews, because I've not lost one. And it's because I've research the heck out of who am I interviewing with? You usually know the person that's going to be interviewing you. What's their background? Where'd they go to school? I mean, any opportunity that you have to take some time to...
Well, it's because people love talking about themselves. So if you can go in there and be like, hey, this is all the things about you. Listen how awesome you are.
Yes.
Then they already like you.
Yes. That's how you win interviews, is that you get the
That's how
person
she won me.
Yeah.
Ryan, you are awesome. I'm like, well, I know. This is the one for me.
Yeah. And if you don't have the opportunity to research ahead of time, then the best thing you can do is ask natural questions to learn about that person up front. Not in a tell me everything, tell me a little bit about yourself kind of way, but just naturally in conversation. And that's something you have to work on if you're not natural at it.
No, that's so true. And I think about sales, and a lot of sales professionals have the attitude that, well, I have to be talking. Like sales is talking. And it's like, no, you're actually winning in your sales conversation when you're talking like 10% of the time and getting them to talk. Because number one, everyone likes to be listened to. Yeah. But number two, as they're telling you, whatever is on their mind, that's like information that you're gathering and you're storing. And when it does come time for you to talk, you can be much more impactful because you can glean little bits from their story. So my belief is like you should be talking about 10% of the time and listening the other 90% of the time. And you're going to be a lot better.
Everybody, please record what Danny just said and play it back to yourself.
Bonus tip right here. My favorite sales strategy: ask for the sale whenever you're done giving your proposal, and then just sit there and don't say anything and have awkward silence, because they can't just sit in awkward silence. People hate it, so they're going to start talking. And you just
then
don't say
guess
anything.
what? You actually hear what they're thinking.
Right.
Versus if you had just kept
I love
talking.
the awkward silence after.
Yeah.
Like, I'll just sit there forever until they say something.
Because then what happens is they're going to voice the objection that they might otherwise have just kept to themselves. And now you have the opportunity to overcome that objection. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Tiffany, thank you so much for coming on here. I know you get plenty of time with Ryan already, so thank you for spending another 20 minutes of your day with him when you didn't have to.
I only agreed to do this because of Danny. So
well,
beautiful. I love it.
Once again, I lose to Danny.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Tiffany.
Thank you.